today's 1 Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million in annual revenue and beyond, build $1 trillion in global GDP and 10 million jobs. And in support of that mission, we do a lot of roundtable mentoring sessions. These free mentoring sessions have been going on since 2008. So it's been more than 10 years, more than 460 sessions. This is the 463rd session. Over 100,000 people have participated in these, and they literally come from every corner of the world. So it's been fascinating to see how much entrepreneurship has spread and globalized in the last decade, and we have been part of that globalization of entrepreneurship trend, and I think we've added some value to that process. This event is being recorded. You will find recordings of this and every other previous roundtables on our 1M Roundtables YouTube channel. It's a great learning material. If you have time and you're looking for learning material, it's a good place to go check out stuff. We also stream a lot of interesting stuff through our Twitter channels at 1Mby1M and at Romana, the two channels, two handles. If you're live tweeting today, please use hashtag 1M1M. These are the call-in instructions. This is a roundtable, not a broadcast, so we want you to participate as much as you would like to. I will put the slide back up later. We have some scheduled programming first, and then we will do open Q&A. Before we begin the scheduled conversation, I want to point you to a challenge that is running right now, the Blackboard 1M by 1M Social Good Startup Challenge. Blackboard is a public company, and their focus is social good cloud products. So they cater to nonprofits, corporate social responsibility organizations, foundations, arts and cultures organizations, so on and so forth, and they sell cloud-based software to these organizations. And so quite a large company, and this partnership that we are doing is to foster entrepreneurship in that field, especially people who want to integrate with Blackboard and want to access their channels. They have 45,000 customers, and they're going to give access to their customer base to people who win the challenge. And then the main prize is a 1M1M Premium Scholarship, which is a one-year scholarship to the 1M1M Premium program. So if what you're doing fits the bill, by all means, apply and see what happens. If you have questions, I will answer that later in the program. Today, we have with us Anand Rajaraman, founding partner at rocketship.vc and Milliwave Ventures. Anand, welcome to the show.
Hey, Shamana. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. So, Anand, let's start by introducing our audience to you as well as to your two venture firms. First, let's start with you, and you have a pretty interesting entrepreneurial journey, so give a little bit of context of what path did you come through to reach this point, and let's get you introduced to the audience.
Got it. Yeah, so let me give you a brief background on myself. I'm from India, grew up in Chennai in India, went to the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras for my undergrad, and then came to Stanford to do my PhD in computer science. This was back in the 90s, when I happened to come to Stanford just as the internet was getting started in 1993. Got excited, got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, dropped out of the PhD program with a few students and started my first company, a company called Junglee. We were, we were among the earliest companies in the online e-commerce space. We pretty much invented the idea of online comparison shopping. The company ended up being acquired by Amazon in '98 was Amazon's first public acquisition, first acquisition as a public company. It was about a $250 million acquisition. Ended up joining Amazon in the very early days when we were just selling books. But Jeff Bezos, even at the time, knew he wanted to sell everything under the sun. So helped Amazon create the marketplace, which we created and helped launch. I left Amazon together with one of my co-founders from Jungli, Venki Harinarayan. We got together post Amazon and started a venture capital firm called Cambrian Ventures. And Cambrian Ventures was one of the earliest, this started in 2000, was one of the earliest seed capital firms, institutional seed capital firms. We were primarily backed companies with deep technology, at the earliest stages. Ended up making a bunch of investments. That fund, Cambrian, ended up being one of the top performing funds of its vintage, top 5% for its vintage, and many interesting companies developing exciting technologies. And post Cambrian, I started another startup together with Venki called Cosmix. It was one of the earliest startups in the artificial intelligence space. This was around 2007, before deep learning became a big thing. But artificial intelligence was, and machine learning were already out, and we wanted to commercialize those. We applied AI and ML to the web, to social media when it emerged. We were among the first to do sentiment analysis of social media and so on. Cosmix was acquired by Walmart in 2011. It was a $300 million acquisition. I helped create for, Walmart at the time wanted to figure out how to compete with Amazon, how to get into the e-commerce game. What Venki and I realized is that to do that, you need to build a big team in Silicon Valley to build the digital capabilities to launch e-commerce. So we created a new unit within Walmart called Walmart Labs, set it up here in Silicon Valley, headed it up for a year and branded that as a cool place to work, and so on. And the Walmart Labs team is now over 7,500 people globally. I left many years ago, but they've still continued to grow that, and it's been helping Walmart in its e-commerce efforts. So after leaving Walmart, I took some time off and then started my current venture capital firm, rocketship.vc, together with Venki and another partner, Sailesh. At Rocketship, we are doing global investing using data and algorithm. Milliways Ventures, the other firm that you mentioned there, that's more of a family office that Venki and I have, where we make investments in companies that don't that are not necessarily for financial reasons.
All right. What is the fund size of Rocketship VC?
Rocketship VC, we are on Fund 2. Fund 2 is a $120 million fund. Fund 1 was a $40 million fund that's fully deployed. We started investing Fund 1 around late 2015. We have about 30 odd companies in the portfolio. Fund 2, we've just finished, we've just raised, and we've just starting to deploy Fund 2.
And what is the stage focus?
So the stage focus for us is this. So we're not focused so much on the stage from a funding point of view, like a Series A or a Series B, but we are much more focused on where the company is in its evolution. For us, the sweet spot to invest is when a company has found product market fit, but before it has achieved massive scale. So those are the kinds of companies that we want to invest in. We want to be one of the earliest funds to invest in companies that have product market fit, but before they reach massive scale, and help them reach that scale. So typically this corresponds to, depending on the region of the world, this might correspond to a Series A in some cases, a pre-Series A round in some cases, or even a Series B round in some cases. So it depends on the region of the world.
Let's dig down a bit on how you define product market fit and how you quantify product market fit.
Sure. So, it would help to understand how we find these companies in the first place. So, in a typical VC firm in Silicon Valley, and many of us are familiar with how they operate. And I've done one myself. We build a big network, and that network refers interesting companies to us because they meet the entrepreneurs and they tell us, here is a great company you should talk to, and then we talk to the companies and invest in a small fraction. That's how venture capital has always worked. It's a network-driven industry. What we're doing at Rocketship is somewhat different. We built a huge database of startup activity all over the world, and this database has a few million companies in pretty much every geography in the world, and we collect a lot of data about each company. With team, with investors, with traction in terms of visits, social media presence, articles, blog posts, all kinds of things. And then we run machine learning models on this data. And what these machine learning models show us is companies that seem to have a product market fit. And by product market fit, usually what we what we mean is that there is the product the company has developed and the market seems to be receptive to it, and there is some early indications that the customers are adopting the product, and it's sort of it's different for a consumer company versus a B2B SaaS company, for example, right? For a consumer company, we may not care about monetization. For a B2B SaaS company, we may care about CAC LTV. So it's very hard to sort of precisely define, but you know it when you see it. There is
You know it when you see it, but how would your algorithm see it? Like, for example, we have companies in our portfolio that have 1 customer, 2 customers, 5 customers, and they're like in the early product market fit kind of phase, right? And nothing is available about these customers and these companies in public. So how would your algorithm find these companies?
Sure. Our algorithms use a variety of things, and it's including things like social media presence and what people are saying, and including employees and other investors and things like this, to build proxy models for various things. And when there are actual customers and there is some actual activity, we track that as well. And we don't claim to be 100% accurate, right? That's not the point. I don't think we catch every company that has product market fit, and nor do all the companies we catch have product market fit. So at some level, we have a filter that surfaces a lot of interesting companies, and we talk to them and invest in some of them. The nice thing about this filter that we use is that it transcends our network, right? So at some level, we are not limited to companies that are referred to us by a network. We don't have particularly a good network in Brazil, but we have investments in Brazil. We have investments in Europe. We have investments in Asia and in North America, right? So the key thing about the data and the algorithms is not that we don't think they're exhaustive. No algorithm can be exhaustive, but it transcends our network.
What is the preferred check size for your funds?
We write about $2 to $3 million checks from Fund 2, which means that we could, if it is an A, we'll usually be a co-lead or be the second largest investor in the US, but in foreign geographies, we might even be the lead. In a pre-A round, we might be able to lead it. In a B round, we almost always be a participant.
Okay. Now, you said you do both B2B and B2C, yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And you're doing globally, so you have no constraints on geography.
We have no constraints on geography. In Fund 1, we did no investments in China. China is a geography where we have very little experience. So we stayed away from China because that's a beast in itself that we don't understand. And which we are, that requires very specific skills that we don't have, which we will learn, which we might learn in due course. But other than that, we pretty much looked at every geography.
Okay. So let's take a few examples, and I'm going to actually start you out with Cambrian Ventures Investments, the company that you invested in from Cambrian.
Mm-hmm.
Give me an example of something that you thought was really cool, really interesting, did really well, and help us think through or help us understand why you invested in that company. At what stage did they come to you? What was it about that company that drew your attention and commitment? And what I'm trying to do here is basically in these use cases or case studies that we're going to do is try to understand the way you think about investing.
Got it. Yeah. So I'll be happy to do that with the qualification that Cambrian's investing model was somewhat different from what we're doing at Rocketship. With Cambrian, we were doing seed investing, so we were going earlier than we're doing at Rocketship. But that said, I can tell you about some of the Cambrian investments. I'll give you an example. One of the Cambrian investments was a company called Aster Data. Aster Data was one of the earliest big data companies. Started around 2004 and was started by three PhD students from Stanford. And one of those students, I teach at Stanford in the computer science department, big data machine learning. And one of the students, Mayank was actually my TA for the class that I teach. And during the class, we were talking about how it would be cool to, MapReduce was just coming out from Google at the time. It was really cool technology. And how would it be nice to combine MapReduce with traditional database technology like SQL and create a new class of database system that combined the new wave of big data with the old wave of managing data. And lo and behold, these three students actually said they wanted to do that company. They built an initial prototype, and they came to me. And at Cambrian, these were the kinds of companies we invested in. We were looking for companies that with deep and differentiated technology, started by deep and differentiated technologists. So we ended up writing a seed check into that company for at the time a seed. Back in 2004, you could do a seed round for $1 million and a half, and that's we led the seed. We put in $1.5 million into that company. I was on the board of the company. The company ended up winning a lot of early customers. Sequoia came in and led the Series A. Doug Leone joined me on the board. We company continued to execute well. Ended up being acquired by Teradata for about $400 million a few years later. So that's the story. That's a typical trajectory for.
How much capital did that company consume before finding its exit?
Maybe $20 million.
Oh, good. All right. Let's come to Rocketship.
Remember companies all companies in the 2000s were reasonably capital efficient compared to today.
Yes.
Right, and I think so that's I think that's that's something.
Well, especially the period that you were talking about was kind of this nuclear winter period of Silicon Valley, so companies didn't get that much funding.
To invest, let me tell you, in Silicon Valley, yeah.
Yeah. So let's come to Rocketship. From the first fund of Rocketship, give us an example. And again, I think what I drew from your first example is you like deep tech, you like people with similar background to yours who have this kind of very deep computer science background and are applying that to some technology problem, ideally data-oriented problems, and nowadays probably increasingly more AI, machine learning kind of stuff. Is that a correct conclusion?
That was a correct conclusion for Cambrian, but remember, Cambrian was 15 years in the past. Clearly, it was, now in Rocketship, we have all kinds of companies that are not necessarily started by computers. I'll tell you about another of my investments that I did just after Cambrian, but before starting Rocketship, which I think is more the template of what led us to start Rocketship. And this was an investment that we made in 2005 or 2006, and it's a company you might know about. It's called Facebook. So we invested in Facebook in the Series A round in 2005. Yeah, I think it was 2005, 2006. Whenever the Series A round happened, the one that was led by Accel at $100 million valuation. So this was a company. By this time, Cambrian didn't exist. We had already started our company, Cosmics. We saw that Facebook was getting, Facebook, when they initially launched, they launched within universities. And one of the earlier universities they launched was Stanford. Venki and I were at Stanford, and we saw that this company was getting a lot of adoption among Stanford students. That convinced us that this company, here's a consumer company with product market fit that is getting a lot of early adoption among an interesting demographic, and we sort of said this would be an interesting company to invest in.
Did Facebook come to you, or did you go to them?
A bit of both. As it happened, I mean, clearly they didn't need our capital, right? So they at that point they already had Peter Thiel's money at the time, and they, he was the only investor, right, at that time.
Yeah.
And they just launched to Harvard and then to Stanford and a few other universities. But within those universities, you could see the growth. At the time, I think Mark Zuckerberg wanted some advice that Venki and I were sort of in a unique place to give him. He connected with us through a mutual acquaintance at the time, and we were able to give him the advice that he needed. But since
what was that? What did he want to know from you?
It's kind of interesting. He had two offers for his Series A. One was from Accel, which he eventually ended up taking. The other was from the Washington Post company. Very few people know this, but the Washington Post company was wanted to invest in Facebook in its early days, and they and Facebook and Accel competed for that deal. Mark wanted to know who to take the money from Accel or from the Washington Post company. Now, the best way to do this is, of course, to talk to other entrepreneurs who've taken investment from these funds. Now, we were for Accel, of course, Accel has been a prolific investor. You could talk to many people, but there are very few companies that have actually taken money from the Washington Post company. In fact, the only one prominent one was Junglee, the company that
I see.
So the Washington Post was the lead investor. When we started Junglee back in 1996, it's an interesting story. The environment, this was 1996. The environment is very different from today. VCs in Silicon Valley did not want to invest in companies started by students who had dropped out of college. Right? So this is very, very different from today. No, not a single VC in Silicon Valley wanted to touch us with a 10-foot pole in 1996. And the Washington Post company happened to be our first customer, and they also became our first investor at Junglee. So today the environment, of course, is very different.
But you discouraged Mark Zuckerberg to take money from the Washington Post?
No. Actually, we gave him the pros and cons and of the situation. We really enjoyed working with the Washington Post company, frankly. They were on our board as well. It was a great relationship. I loved working with them. Very forward thinking for a newspaper at the time. I'd also worked with Accel in the past. We co-invested with them, sat with them on boards at Cambrian, and so on. Accel eventually ended up being an investor in Cosmics as well. So so we had a good relationship with both. So we gave them the pros and cons, and we said, look, here are the pros and cons. Obviously, you're the entrepreneur, you're going to make the decision. But the one request I told him was, whoever you decide to invest, please let us invest alongside. Mark Zuckerberg was good enough to honor that promise. So that's how we started investing in Facebook. So yeah, Facebook is so that's, I mean, at some level, Facebook was kind of the prototypical example that motivated us to start Rocketship. We invested in Facebook at at the early sign of product market fit. When we could see it being used by lots of college students, we could see the engagement, we could see the adoption. There was no marketing driving this. There was no customer acquisition. There was no CAC. There was zero CAC, right? No business model, but that didn't bother us, right? So so that's what, and we found Facebook because we happened to be embedded in the Stanford ecosystem, and we happened to come across them. But that is, so what we really wanted to do was we got somewhat lucky there in spotting Facebook. How do you sort of take that luck and make it systematic, right? And that's what led us to start.
Yeah, definitely serendipity. Well, I think the characteristic of Facebook is hyper-virality. And my thesis is that if you want to do, blitz scaling, as Reid Hoffman calls it, you kind of need hyper-virality. Otherwise, putting that much money into a company with no validation of how it's going to make money and so forth doesn't work unless you have this extraordinary levels of virality.
That's fair. That's true. But remember, Facebook, compared to the startups of today, was actually very capital efficient. They didn't raise that much money.
It was very capital efficient. I actually use that as a case study all the time, which is why Zuckerberg ended up owning so much of Facebook even after all these rounds of financing.
Both
Phenomenal.
Google and Facebook were both super capital
very
efficient.
Capital efficient. Very
right?
capital efficient.
Compared to the companies that came later. So I think that model works. I think I'm more worried about the capital intensive scaling models that we
I don't like that model at all. So actually was one of my questions to you is, do you like that model? Are you into this hyper scaling, blitz scaling with huge amounts of capital?
I'm not a huge fan of the model, frankly. It seems to be, but unfortunately, it seems to be a reality of our times. It's not something that I can wish away, right? But it does seem to be a feature of our times. I worry that there's so much capital sloshing. See, one of the nice things about environment where there is some capital constraint is that a good entrepreneur and a good team,
get to figure it out.
Get sorted out, and they can. They will get they will get funding. The weaker ones won't get as much funding, so you won't have companies sort of bashing each other's brains out with marketing dollars, right? So right. So and the problem with that, one of the problems we have in the current scenario is that if you have any kind of interesting market opportunity that's uncovered by a company, which can be served by a commodity product, okay, a product that doesn't need deep innovation, then instantly 10 other companies will pop up, and there's enough capital that they will all raise large amounts of capital. And then it's a race to the bottom in terms of margins, because they will all spend money to scale. And
absolutely. Terrible markets to be in.
So you might actually end up having spaces where there's huge consumer demand, right? With this huge consumer demand, there's and there are 5 companies on a pitch are profitable.
Right. So let's do one example from your Rocketship portfolio that illustrates more of what you're doing today.
Sure. So I'll give you an example from India. We are an investor in a company in India called Moglix. Moglix is a company based in Delhi, and they are in the B2B e-commerce space. business-to-business commerce space. What Rahul Garg, the founder of Moglix, observed was that India's industrial base is modernizing, and as industrial base modernizes, all these factories have to operate 24/7 and not have downtime and so on. But factories often run out of consumables like lubricants, like fasteners, like motors, like safety equipment, and so on. So what Moglix does is that it integrates into the ERP systems of factories in India, and as they run out of consumables, there's a marketplace behind from which those consumables can be supplied. So what really helped this company take off is the change in the tax regime in India, the introduction of the goods and services tax, or GST, which made it necessary for companies to change the way they do record keeping, so that to claim tax credits now you need much more detailed records of your inputs, right? So Moglix became also the place that enables you to keep track of all that. Plus, there's also the marketplace behind that actually supplies the product. So the company has scaled really well. They've been one of the fastest growing companies. I think somebody, I've forgotten, or somebody Inc. or somebody called them the fastest growing company in Asia outside of China or something like that. So
B2B e-commerce is a very interesting space. I've seen a lot of interesting companies in B2B e-commerce, and especially in markets where it's immature, like India, where the attention has been more on the Flipkarts and Amazons. I think it's a very interesting space that hasn't been over-invested yet.
Yes, so the company rapidly invested to 2017 or so when we invested $100 million in revenues, a significant amount of funding, three rounds of funding after we invested, and they're scaling rapidly. So that's B2B. That's kind of the prototypical company that we look for, where we come in early, but then the company continues to scale up. That's an example in the B2B e-commerce space. But we also do kind of more companies. I'll give you another example out of India as well. One is a company called. Moglix is not just in India. Their customers are in 40 different countries in Asia, Southeast Asia, and so on. So another company out of India is a company called Locust. Locust is actually a technology company. They provide machine learning driven models for logistics optimization, optimizing deliveries and scheduling and stuff, with large fleets and so on. And it's founders out of BITS Pilani, Goa in India, and the company is based in Bangalore. And they came up with these algorithms, and their early customer wins were the people who had to do lots of deliveries in India, which is like people like Myntra, which is a division of Flipkart, right? And it was a customer, and Blue Dart, which is one of the biggest delivery services in India, uses them. Big Basket uses their software, and so on. And today, they've also expanded to Southeast Asia, Indonesia. The biggest e-commerce players use them, and they raised a big round of funding recently from Tiger, and they're planning to enter the U.S. market now. So that's another example of a company that we invest in.
So India, you are very big, very bullish on.
Yeah, sorry?
You're bullish on India.
Yeah, India has been an interesting story for us because we actually had very few investments in India from our fund as of 2017. But after 2017, we've sort of seen very interesting things happen in India. And this is largely data-driven. The data led us there, right? So we didn't...
The quality of companies from India is improving greatly.
Sorry?
The quality of companies out of India is improving greatly.
Yeah, the quality of companies coming from India is improving significantly. I'm seeing amazing entrepreneurs. When I talk to entrepreneurs from India, it feels no different from talking to an entrepreneur from
That's
Silicon
right.
Valley.
That's exactly right. That's
Right?
exactly right. And many of them have worked here, gone back there, and doing this bicontinental thing, and it's become a very fluid model. We have tons of this model in our portfolio.
Right.
I will ask you one last question, and then we're going to switch to the entrepreneur pitch, which is, so the funds, the check size that you were writing is actually very much in our comfort zone, in the sense that we actually like the philosophy of bootstrap first, raise money later.
Mm-hmm.
And we have because we work a lot in geographies where bootstrapping is very popular and almost essential in many cases. Entrepreneurs are being very scrappy and getting to product market fit with very interesting bootstrapping models and so on and so forth, and building good companies, good products, etc. Maybe it's a bit slower than it would be with early capital infusion, but it also forces them to really look at the fundamentals, look at the discipline, look at the why customers are buying, and so on and so forth. So we actually like this model of taking companies that have more or less been able to achieve product market fit on their own, or maybe with a little bit of friends and family financing, maybe a small amount of angel capital, and then really going into a small Series A, not like a $7 million Series A, but more like a $3 million, $4 million Series A, maybe even $2 million Series A. And I think that's what, out of this conversation, that's where I see a good fit between what we are doing and what you are trying to do.
No, that definitely. I think I'm a big believer in that model that you scale after you find a product market
fit. Yeah, very good. Anand, thank you for coming today, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Anand. I need to drop off now, but it's been great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Folks, we're going to switch to the entrepreneur pitch session, a little bit of expectation setting. This is a safe working session. We have no other agenda but to guide you through what is it that you're struggling with and brainstorming about your strategy and help you accelerate your companies. In doing so, it may be that you disagree with the feedback you get from me, and that's fine. It's your venture. You will do what you want to do. You don't need to do what I'm going to tell you to do, but because I have experience, you should listen and think about what I'm telling you. One thing, though, that is true, and this is true, it is not like an optional truth, it is the truth. Not all businesses can raise money. Not all businesses should raise money. Raising money doesn't guarantee success. You have to take this into account as you develop your strategy, because if you don't have what we call fundability metrics or such scenarios and try to go out to raise money, you're going to get rejected over and over again, and that's a complete wastage of time. We recommend that you don't do that. We're going to work today with Harsha Mukherjee from Mumbai, India. Harsha, welcome to the show. Go ahead.
Thank you, Shramana. How are you doing?
Good.
I connected with you in 2010 when I was endeavoring towards having my own venture. And from then till now, it's been quite a journey.
Tell me, what have you done? What is Digital Parliament?
Digital Parliament is a venture that I created in order to connect political leaders, groups, associations, and all of them with masses to raise issues and to resolve those issues on the app itself. We are trying to build a Facebook for politics over here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what is the current status? Is this something that at a concept level, or are you already doing it? Where are you in your evolution?
So we have already created the app. We raised seed capital to create the app. We have our tech team ready. We have website ready. And we are looking to engage with people, which
And is this a B2C product, B2C platform?
yes, yes.
Okay. And so you haven't launched yet. You've just got these pieces ready. We haven't launched yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. What is your plan of launching this? How are you going to get it in the hands of? That's a key question. For a B2C venture, social media venture like what you're talking about, how do you plan to get adoption for a platform like this?
Yes, so, well, the best place where we think that we can launch it is where the elections would be coming up. Say Delhi elections would be coming in the month of February, so we can start by going in associations and key unions to adopt something like this. We have in the groups section on our app, we have association, union, colleges, NGOs, corporates, housing societies who can conduct their elections internally on our app. You can also create political parties on
Hold
the
on
app.
1 second. Hold on. You want, example, colleges to conduct their elections on your app? That's what the software does? That's what the platform does?
That is one aspect. You can do that. We have an election management feature in our app.
Okay. So that makes it a B2B app, not a B2C app.
But we do have a B2C component also.
So I would like you to think about how you're going to go to market without assuming that you're going to raise a lot of money, because what you're presenting to me right now is not a fundable situation. So if your next step depends on raising money, you can't raise money for this right now. So you're going to have to get to market somehow, and I find it encouraging that you have an election management tool or feature, functionality, whatever in your platform. So let us say you can find a segment that where running an election and managing an election is an important part of their work. And you need to find those that are willing to pay you to manage their elections on your platform. And that's going to bring you consumers onto your platform. And if you have enough organizations who set up shop, election, units or election offices on your platform, that brings consumers onto your platform, and then you can maybe draw the consumers into doing other things on your platform, but somehow the consumers will have to be brought on your platform. The consumers are on Facebook, they're on WhatsApp, they're not on your platform. So if they want to do political activism, they're going to do political activism by creating Facebook groups or WhatsApp groups. They're not going to come onto your platform and set up, new groups, because nobody is on your platform right now.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what is a segment where running an election is a vital part of their existence, and as such they would be willing to pay you to manage their election on your platform? What is such a segment?
I think so. Unions in India, like trade union, rickshaw union, taxi unions, they have elections. Housing societies have elections. Associations have elections.
So let's take them one step at a time. Housing societies have elections, but housing societies are very intensely catered to by this company called Apartment Adda, which is the leader in that space, and I bet they have election functionality as well. Is that not a true statement?
Well, they may be only for the housing society. Are they doing for other groups and associations as well?
Yeah, but I'm trying to find a segment where you can go in and build a business. So housing societies is not the segment where you can go in and build a business, because there is a major player, entrenched player, that will be very difficult to dislodge because they have broad functionality to cater to the housing societies.
And the
So come up with a segment that is underserved but wants to do elections, and also you have to find people who are comfortable with social media and working within social media group structures and so on and so forth. I'm not sure that a rickshaw union is going to be very social media friendly. You see what I'm saying?
Trade union, or maybe associations or Rotary Club or Lions Club.
Have you talked to any of these types of organizations?
I have discussed it with Diamond Market Association, and it's in the process. So they are working how to make it happen, how to accept.
Yeah, the reason I don't like the idea of going to Rotary clubs and Lions clubs is these are relatively small organizations. I think your software is valuable if it's a large voter base that has to vote. If it's a small club with 50 members or 100 members, managing that election is not that complicated. And it happens once a year or once in 3 years. That's not a complicated scenario.
Colleges like JNU?
Colleges may be a better option, because colleges, let's say college unions or college alumni associations have to have elections every year.
Yeah,
so you're going to need to go find a segment that is willing to pay for your election management functionality. And that's my primary feedback to you, is that don't try to do this as a B2C venture. I don't think you will succeed, because there's too much momentum on the existing platforms like the Facebook, the WhatsApp, the Snapchats, and so on and so forth. There are people there, and groups are forming easily and organically because there's so many people there. So it's going to be very difficult for you to tap into that. But if you do it as a B2B venture, catering to a particular use case of election management, that is more doable. And you can charge, some fees to these organizations and start getting your business off the ground. I think that's the way I think you should play this company.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
What kind of fees would, if you think you could help us with, what should we charge if we have to launch this in India, in the US, because elections are over there next year, the presidential ones. So if we have to
You're not going to be running the US presidential election on your platform. There's absolutely no chance of that happening. You're not there. I mean, no country. You have nothing right now. You haven't even launched, and we are sitting at the end of 2019. The U.S. presidential election is next year. Do you think it's practical for a country to put their bet on a company like you who has no experience? This is one of the largest democracies in the world.
We cannot do that, but if we can help some candidates or mobilize more people on the platform.
You have to figure out which use case you're going to sell around. What are you going to mobilize? You don't have people on your platform. Candidates are looking for you to bring them people, whereas you are looking for candidates to bring you people. So what is your value proposition to candidates? You have to think through what is your value proposition, what problem are you going to solve, and how are you going to get somebody to pay for whatever use case, whatever problem you're solving. And that's your number one goal right now, is to figure that out. As far as how 1Mby1M might help you, just hang on. I'm going to cover that right now, and then you can ask me questions after I've done that segment.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, folks, as you can see, I give very direct, very candid feedback. And if you like that mode of interaction and, constructive feedback, you're very welcome to join us and also bring other serious entrepreneurs in your friends and family networks into 1 million by 1 million, something that we would like you to do, refer us to other serious entrepreneurs. All our resources are at 1Mby1M.com. There's a blog that is free. You will learn a lot from it. But just by following the blog, the Entrepreneur Journeys book series, we have 12 volumes. You can learn a lot by following these book series. There are 12 to 16 case studies per book, and they deal with specific topics. These roundtables happen every week, week after week after week. Over 100,000 people have attended. You're very welcome to come back over and over again or listen to the recordings. The full acceleration program for 1 million by 1 million is premium, 1M premium, and we offer you extensive methodology guidance, project-based coaching in, strategy consulting, whatever you call it, but we have private roundtables where we do the coaching. You saw a little example of that in what I was doing with Harsha just now. We have a curriculum, and many of you who are just starting out and don't have a lot of experience, I strongly recommend go through the 1 million by 1 million curriculum, and that will teach you a lot. For premium members, we help you with business development and also with financing and media relations. Caveat, financing only if you're fundable, and we will help you through that process of diagnosing your fundability, improving your fundability, and so on and so forth. Go to the self-assessment on the 1 million by 1 million site and start answering these questions. These are questions that investors would ask you. I think you should ask these questions of yourselves. Our curriculum-only version is 1M by 1M Basic. If you get stuck on these questions, that's a perfect place to go fill your knowledge gaps, plug your knowledge gaps. So dig around on the website. There's lots of information about what to expect from the premium program, basic program. There's FAQs, video FAQs. There's a full description of the curriculum, which is a case study-based curriculum, case studies and video lectures. Over 1,000 successful entrepreneurs have participated in this case study program. They've generously shared their lessons from the trenches, their wisdom, and you get to learn from them. Includes over 100 unicorn entrepreneurs, another 400 plus venture-funded companies, another 400 plus bootstrapped entrepreneurs. All of that is available for you to leverage. Our methodology is lean, capital-efficient bootstrap startups. The philosophy is bootstrap first, raise money later. And that's pretty much it. We have 4 more free roundtables before Thanksgiving, 7th, 14th, 21st, and 27th. And then we also have, usually Tuesday mornings, we are doing the rendezvous online. You can follow that on LinkedIn Live, Facebook, and Twitter. November 5th, 12th, 19th, and 26th are the next ones. We have in-person rendezvous a couple of times a month usually, so the one next is on November 13th. Please feel free to sign up and show up at Cafe Boroni. This is for people who are in Silicon Valley or are visiting Silicon Valley. We get a lot of visiting entrepreneurs. And that's pretty much it. If you have questions, I will answer them. You're welcome to join in by phone or ask questions in the public chat. Let me introduce you to Irina Patterson, Irina at 1Mby1M.com. She will answer questions about the program. And that's pretty much it. Anybody? Any questions, comments, feedback? I don't see any hands up. You wanted to know about Blackboard. Go ahead and ask questions about Blackboard. Have you looked at the Blackboard site and what kinds of products they have, and you can definitely apply for the Blackboard program. The one thing that you have to keep in mind, Harsha, is that for you to qualify for the Blackboard Scholarship, they want a working product and one customer, at least one customer. So you have to get there before you can actually win the scholarship. So for this election platform, you have one customer. What kind of customer do you have? Not for your present venture. Well, I don't know anything about IICSR, so I can't comment on it. If it's running for 5 years and if you have a product that has customers and you want to build on that, if you tell them that you're trying to do another thing and move on from IICSR, they're not going to give you the scholarship. But if you're interested in building something that already exists, then you can apply for the program and see what happens. But you have to commit to doing that venture. If IICSR is something that you have customers for and you want to scale up through the Blackboard partnership, and if it's a fit, that is fine. You should have pitched IICSR today and not this thing. Because you're not going to get another opportunity to pitch here, another free opportunity to pitch here. If you pitch my IICSR, I could have guided you on how to play Blackboard using that. Now you have to basically apply for Blackboard and take your chance, but apply with only if you have a customer. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay? Anybody else? Any other questions? What I would recommend you do, Harsha, is sign up, fill out the application form and start a dialogue with Blackboard soon, so that they're aware that you're trying to apply for this. If Roz wants to give you any feedback, she can, so on and so forth, and try to understand Blackboard and how you want to leverage them and how you want to leverage 1 million by 1 million in that process. Both of those are important. Okay? Yes, application form is online. So Maureen has given you the link. Just follow the link and everything is there. Okay, folks, we're going to wrap it up today. I don't see any other questions. I will see you next week. Thank you for coming. Bye.